Good morning once again, and welcome to the first session of IREN Growthpad Virtual Food Festival Day 2. And this is a panel discussion on the theme on food tourism industry and navigating the new normal. In this panel discussion, we shall be discussing and looking at the current general outlook in the industry and how the sector is navigating the challenges that have been caused by the COVID-19. And today we are joined by our moderator, Topista Nabusoba, who will drive this discussion. Topista, I take the floor to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Esperance. It's yet another day, a beautiful day for us to discuss about the most important thing in our life, that is food, and especially how we navigate the food industry in the new normal with a bias to food tourism. And we see that the food industry, there are new trends that are now defining the new normal in the food industry. And we see that the restaurants and the food areas, they have had to merely survive during this period, because we've seen also the change in consumer behavior, the issues of social distancing norms due to the implementation of the lockdowns now and again. So how do these bear on the food industry? And it's a pleasure to introduce Muthuri Kinyamu, founder Turnup Travel, to start the discussion as we wait for Prince Peterson. Muthuri Kinyamu.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I think, I would like to maybe speak, to how I've seen restaurants navigate this COVID-19 downtime to how they are recovering now and how they've been able to comply. And then we can touch on other things around that, like technology and hosting experiences, I think, now in the new normal. So I think pretty much in Kenya, I feel e-commerce had taken off, so we could order food through apps, we could get, restaurants delivering. And so when COVID came, that continued. So instead of going out to dine, restaurants then would ship to us to, to sample what we used to enjoy now at home. Of course, this interruption caught a few places, not ready. So we've seen a steep change, in terms of, technology adoption. And then, of course, being able to do that at price points that are, affordable. And of course, logistics is a key backbone to that, to getting food delivered on time, in good condition, safe, and all that. So I think there are companies that have been able, besides listing on your food delivery apps, there are companies that are helping restaurants sort of develop the infrastructure from payments to, to getting online to delivery and all that. I also see an opportunity, I think, for small and small cafes that are, an opportunity for them, I think, to reach more people. I feel COVID has sort of like shaken the big, but the nimble will survive. So I see an opportunity as people want to discover very, diverse, Kenya is diverse. So we have about 44 tribes. So there is an opportunity, I think, to get a taste of Kenya from different cafes. And that's now been brought closer to you through technology. So you can order, from a Mama Oliet, you can order something else from, a Spanish cafe and all that. So my thoughts would be, as we emerge from COVID, I would look at how you're able to create a hybrid dining experience. So where if people are not ready to come to the restaurants, you can ship whatever you're making to their homes.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mudhuri, what are the main challenges on these trends that we begin to see in the food industry?
One, I think, dining has always been togetherness, so when we come up with, social distancing, reduced capacities, you see, restaurants and hotels have always run on a model of selling seats or capacity, basically. So when it comes to hosting, the key things like events, weddings, conferencing, so restaurant, or rather, let me say, hotels are caught in between, because on one side we have the limits on gatherings, which I think is still 15 as it is. Of course, bars and clubs are closed, so that's another limitation. Curfew, of course, but then there is also the other side that could also be creating very bespoke and themed dining experiences around, where people can still gather, if they're under 15, or you could still host a series of other events like brunch. I've seen like Social House in Nairobi has had like a successful run with their brunch, all that. So, Leleshwa Wine, Morendat Farm is hosting Leleshwa Wine tours from, from the 10th of October. So that's another unique, say, dining experience that, someone could take out as, a luxury day trip dining, and come back in Nairobi. So I don't know. I think there is enough room between the restrictions and the guidelines set to be able to create out of the box dining experiences for, slightly lower numbers, but then with an opportunity to do that more regularly.
Do we see customers, increased number of customers taking up these new trends in engaging with the food industry in terms of accessing?
I think what I would say is Kenyans have been early adopters of technology, from, a success of like mobile money to the adoption of e-commerce and all that. So what I see is it's important for the consumer to have options. So you can dine in if you want to, you can order online and it will be delivered, or you can still order and then pick it, So, and that gives people, I think, depending on where you are, because right now, maybe COVID might have been a health pandemic, but now the main problem establishments are facing is how to, regain confidence. How do they communicate their protocols? How they bring back people? And so I feel being able to have options of, you can find us on these apps. You can still, we are open from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. You can drop by, eat in, or take out. So I think it's gonna be a process. People will not. I don't see the hospitality industry being, like a school scenario where if a school is open, then people come back, in droves. Yeah. It will take. You will need a lot of social proof, like working with content creators to review, new menus and bringing people back in. I see an opportunity of being able, I think, to go a bit more experiential. So you could, instead of just cooking, you could offer a cooking class, for example, so that becomes something more educational, goes behind the scenes with the chef and that kind of a thing. There is also, I think, a lot more, discovery going on in the kitchen. So people have been able to, try recipes, cook them at home. And so they would like to maybe get it done by an expert, maybe in a you say, if you're craving some Chinese food, you can go to a Chinese cafe in Nairobi, for example. So that's what I see. Give people option, but consistently show them the diversity of your offerings.
Mm-hmm. Now, the food industry works hand in hand with socializing. And I think what has had the socializing aspect is what has also had an impact, a great impact, due to the issues of social distancing in this new normal. And that is what also works hand in hand with the food industry in terms of restaurants. How is the food industry or those in this industry navigating around this?
Hi, Topista. Maybe just to cut it short a little bit there, Muthuri has mentioned of how the industry players are supposed to offer a hybrid or a diversified way of producing, offering their value to their customers. And I'll just like to hear from Prince Peterson. I don't know if he has joined us. Prince Peterson? Peterson? I really wish he could have joined us to just listen to how, from the culinary perspective, of how the chefs and caterers are navigating through this sector, because they have been out of. Prince, I can see you there. Please unmute yourself. Good. Peterson, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah. You can set up your camera well.
You.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you too. And thank you for your time.
It's okay. So Muthuri and Topista started us off so well. And Muthuri has talked about how the sector is trying to navigate through providing diversified products from their services, creating hybrid dinner experiences like the one he has mentioned for the Leshwa wine experiences. So I'll just like to hear from you before Topista goes on, and on what the Culinary Society is doing to navigate these impacts of COVID-19. Peterson.
Yes, the Culinary Society, we are a little introduction. We are a group of chefs.
Yeah, sure.
We came together, we are from different hotels. And to be sincere, the pandemic has really affected the hotel industry. And we are coping up. We are doing well, and we have adapted to the situation, various situations. We took the advantage of the go slow or the lockdown, first to train our staff and to adapt to new technologies, to come up so that as to meet the expectations of the guests. Okay, we until the hotels which are booking in guests who are coming for accommodation, so it's a bit tricky on our side. This is how we are doing our services. We are doing room services mostly. We are doing room service because we cannot open buffets, or when in the restaurant, minimum of 15 guests, we are also serving, a la carte, and that's how we are coping to the situation. We are also giving out takeaways. Guests are calling, they order, we deliver, or they come and pick.
Okay, thank you, Topista. I come back to continue.
And I think I could also just pick up from what Peterson has said, and to just find out, because chefs work, especially in the way we know them, in restaurants, and he has enumerated the various ways and trends that chefs have picked up in terms of doing room service. And right now there's no buffet, a la carte, and now takeaways. What menus then are therefore most preferred for this kind of service, Peterson?
Okay, right, like us, we are doing tepondot, which is we do choices of 3 meat, like 3 meat and accompaniments. Not that big elaborate menu, because you have only 15 guests coming to your restaurant. It will be ambiguous. So we are mostly doing table dot. You choose from the 3 items today, tomorrow, another different items like that.
Yes. Muturi?
Yes.
Coming back to you. How does this then marry with what Peterson has said? What are your thoughts about what Peterson has said in terms of the challenges and the trends that you enumerated, therefore, of e-commerce?
I think one is, people are craving human connections. So people want to get together, come around, celebrate, and, dine out. So on one side, there is a craving for, good food, social connections, and all that. Now, on the other side, there are restrictions, as Peter is saying, around the capacity that you can host, about, buffet over a la carte, all these things. And I feel there is probably an opportunity for one, if you remove the COVID scenario, then what else do you sell? So I feel like the safety message has been able to sink in the consumer mind, so people know when they're supposed to sanitize, wear masks, and all that. Kenyans have started, making more of reservations. So because again, now if food has to be prepared, then you kind of have to say, I am coming and I'll be here at 4 p.m. and all that. So culturally, that's, I think, happening. The other thing that I see is being able to package really themed experiences. And so besides the branch, you could do, I think, quite a lot more that people get to appreciate, depending on their diverse palettes or interests and all that. So I hope this downtime can also be a good, space to experiment and test out like new menus, new ideas. When you're less busy, then you can see what works, what doesn't, what works at what price points, what can be a regular thing, what can we, scrap and all that. It's also a good time to audit what you've been doing and realigning it, I think, for the new normal. So it's a good. I'm looking at it that we are not just restarting tourism, but we are, we are building, we are rebuilding. So and rebuilding, I think, means relooking at what, and how we've been doing things, and then saying, what works now for this new normal and what doesn't, and then, sort of like scrapping it off. And I hope to see a lot more innovative, concepts before, we get back to that volume, 500 people banqueting type things for around conferencing, big weddings and all that. Because that will take maybe a year or two before you start getting those big gatherings.
Maybe in view of what you have said, looking at international tourists vis-a-vis domestic tourists in terms of the food industry, what is currently going on?
One, I think if you look at Nairobi, the dining scene there, for example, I think Kenyans love Italian taste. Surprisingly, I learned that we have about 60 to 70 Chinese restaurants. So there is, again, I think, appreciation of more Pan-Asian type stuff. I see, because that investment is already there. So maybe a few will maybe unfortunately close down. But I see the cosmopolitan nature of our cities and the diversity of our cultures still becoming a key thing around culinary experiences. And, this is delivered in different ways, whether that's around festivals, whether that's around events like what Eat Out used to have, like your Burger Week, Pizza Week, all those things, or whether that's delivered as combos and delivered to customers, thematic weeks or that kind of a thing. So, but before international tourism rebounds, we have an opportunity again, because we have people from all walks of, and backgrounds and countries in the country already as residents. There is still an opportunity to package for that, for the Indian market, for Chinese residents, for Kenyans who have these different tastes. So, you can literally have a Japanese themed night, even for Kenyans at the hotel, at your hotel. So, and I see that, I think, as an opportunity to also, introduce your smaller restaurants, or, or innovative sort of, I think, dining experiences, even with that, with a few people, 10 people seated around, and, you have a live cooking, whatever that is. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I see a question from James, and I think Peterson, you could start by responding to this question by James, and he's asking, how is the sector managing the fear of COVID-19? Maybe we'll start with the chefs.
Thank you. At first, it was so tense. But now, as you see, the new norm has started sinking into the minds of everybody in Kenya. Now we have managed to prepare ourselves and follow the guidelines set by the Minister of Tourism, which we are following, and we have adopted them, and now we are coping well. The tension is not so much as it was before.
Did we have quite a number of chefs being laid off during this time?
Yeah, majority of 3/4 of our chefs are on unpaid leave. Yes. Now we are operating on minimum numbers.
And as a group of chefs, and you have come together, how are you being supportive to ensure that even those who have gone home, there's something that that there are new innovations? Maybe you are coming up with new ways of doing things that, because now this is a threatened, space.
Yeah, we are supporting our members. We are supporting each other financially, also by peace of mind, encouragement. We also trying to secure jobs for our members. So we are supporting each other.
Yes, and Muturi, managing fear.
I think this for us, let me give we, as guys, never quite closed, so we said, because there is no, close and reopening for, I think, for us as a tour business, we sort of decided to continue packaging and giving people options whenever they are ready and whenever the restrictions are lifted and all that. So I feel people are going to manage or rebound whenever they are ready. So, and for me, there are people who've just become, so nervous to even step outside. But over time, I think there is, you start seeing people outside, you start seeing people are flying, you start seeing people are at the beach. And sort of like, I think you either you have FOMO that, these, you start feeling like now you need to also do some of those things, or you're okay because someone has done it and come back and they're okay and all that. So I see an opportunity, I think, for more campaigns that are geared towards restoring confidence. Kenya broadly has been, rated a safe destination by WTO. We have been able, I think, to comply with the various draft guidelines published by the ministry to reopen hotels, to reopen, to deliver safe experiences. So I think the consumer confidence is rebounding. Hotels this weekend have, about 60% occupancy. Masai Mara places have been fully booked for certain weekends. So Kenyans, I think, are back out there, but of course, it's gonna take a bit more time for everyone else to, to get back to 2019 levels. And I think the festive season will be a good chance to see how this plays out, whether people will still have that, festive spirit to step out, celebrate together, and, and still, be safe.
Thank you, Mzuri. And there's a follow-up question from Jens again. Do you both think that there's need to re-skill the staff in the industry? In terms of using technology, perhaps, coming up with the new innovations within the same industry? Is there a need to retrain?
Exactly what I said. We are using this low season to train our staff and equip our facility with the new technologies.
What areas of training specifically?
Okay, we started with the COVID-19 SOPs by the Minister of Tourism, which is in place now. Then we have installed, like, when you are coming in, you need to clock with a finger on the wall. Now we are not using a finger, you just lift your hands like this and it peaks. So we have trained and adopted technology. So it's necessary to adopt and train. All our staff go on leave. When they come back, when we call, because you are calling one at a time or two, first you train them the procedures before they join the team.
Madhuri?
I think there is an opportunity to reskill people to understand the broader context of which maybe a restaurant or hotel operates, and and how that has changed for the new normal. There is things like that have been able to rise, like dark kitchens, for example, and these are like burgers made somewhere but delivered to you, or other things. So I look at what I've seen is people have been able to put also their skills in different ways. Whether that's becoming like a roaming chef that you can cook home to home, or whether that's accompanying clients who booked a self-catering cottage and you cook for them over there. So people have been able, I think, to realign their skills and offer them to other people in different ways. So you don't need to be employed, but then you could use your part-time differently, because now maybe you're doing maybe slightly lesser workload or around like your shift. And I see that being an opportunity for people to acquire new skills beyond the core cooking. How do you run a business? How do you handle customers? How do you sort of, I think, build an ecosystem that serves different customers or clients, or I don't know, stakeholders or partners. Yeah.
Thank you. Sally? Sally would want to add to this discussion. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you, Professor. It's about how the hotels have been trying to manage, speaking from the hotelier point of view, and what James had raised, because there's you asked how the hotels have been trying to manage the fear. So it depends with the individuals, hotels, and how they are trying to put up measures. What are some of the measures they are putting up in place to ensure that people are safe from the COVID-19? And these again takes us to what Peterson had mentioned in terms of the trainings that the hotels have been doing, because you have to assure the people that they are safe. So is your hotel all safe? What are you doing? So recently the hotels have been doing the testing, and then in terms of reskilling, are people tech savvy? Because even for the restaurants, it's no longer what used to happen. You cannot go and start ordering from the menu. You have to have, you need to be digitally good, because if you're going to scan a menu, you need to scan it. You need to, go through the digital way. It's the digital way now. So it's not as easy as before, but it depends with what are the new introductions to try and curb, all the challenges that we are facing.
Thank you, Sally. Did I see your hand up, restaurant?
A quick one, Topista.
Yes, James.
For the beds. So once somebody has used the bed,
so in fact,
quarantine it for 5 days before another person?
No. Well, you do not quarantine for the next 5 days, but what happens is new introductions in terms of the cleaning. So you have the cleaning. Once someone checks out, you leave it for 24 hours. There's what do we call it? Initially you would just do the cleaning, and but right now you even do the spraying. So you even spray the entire room. You use some what do we call? There's something we call some gadgets. They look like guns. So as you hover through the bed, you can see the stains or something like that. It's some blue light, and then you can actually see if there's any germs. Or well, you cannot see germs 100%, but it's as good as killing all the germs. So it depends with the new introductions, what you have in place. And then we had mentioned the trainings that happens. So you have to go through all those protocols so that you are all safe certified. You cannot run the hotel if you don't meet that, because in fact, a few other things that have been introduced is Corona can really do well in the lounges. So right now people are avoiding the lounges and are doing the other chairs, especially in the hotels.
Okay. Thank you, Sally. And I see there's an addition. Fumigation of rooms is done duly. Sally, you want to talk about fumigation? And I guess that's what you've been talking about.
It's actually, yeah, it's still the same point, because I mentioned we even use the gun sprayers, which is actually fumigating the room. So you have to fumigate it and leave it for 24 hours before someone checks in. But then, of course, if the hotel has a number of rooms, then you leave those ones for a while as the other people use the other sides.
And I see a question from Justin, and he's asking, does this affect the cost of services? Does it take the cost of services up?
Yeah, maybe I can mention one before you proceed with Peterson and Mudhuri. It has affected the cost of service, because as Peterson mentioned, people had to be let go. So people are on unpaid leave. The little money that is there, because the hotel is also not generating any revenues, are used for this. So you actually end up using a lot of money in terms of putting up COVID-19 measures, as opposed to actually the money used for food. So food is even becoming cheaper than the cost of the measures that are put in place to ensure that people are safe.
But I want to believe that that cost will be transferred to the customer.
Well, right now you cannot really transfer cost to the customer, because you're also trying to push and welcome people back. If you're so expensive, then people are not going to come. You still have to do some offers to get the people back in the hotel, and then maybe with time, Actually, if anything, people are doing, people are now, customizing their offers to actually cater for the locals, because those are now the markets. That is the markets. People are still not traveling from abroad. So the few people who are here, you see the hotels coming up with some East African resident rates, Kenyan locals, to make sure that they come back to the hotel. So if you again hike it, then people might not come. It's actually the cost to be taken by the hotel if it's to survive. In fact, for those people who closed completely, it would be so hard, because it's like starting again. It's like you are in the pre-opening session. So it's even costly. You better just leave it running. The small that is there, the small offers that you have can keep generating some revenues for the hotel. Over to you, Topis.
Thank you. And I think these are questions for Mudhuri and Prince. Justin is also asking what the government is doing to cushion the industry, like it has done for other sectors. Mudhuri?
The Ministry of Tourism put aside, I don't know, was it 5 billion or something, but through the Tourism Finance Corporation. This is a debt facility with a 10-year repayment period, and it has a 2-year repayment holiday. So this is for hoteliers to go and apply, and it's also available to SMEs for borrowing. Now, in terms of relief, I think the other thing maybe the government to do is, reconsider the licensing, taxation, and other things. So give policy incentives to the investors, because we've not done business this year. People are still paying for their licenses and all those things. As Sally had mentioned, the cost of compliance is a bit steep. And, you remember when restaurants had, to test their staff and to reopen. And then after a while, then the government again closed the restaurants and bars, for example. So there is a huge cost in terms of compliance that I think the government needs to work hand in hand with the hoteliers to not just ensure the safety, but then the efficiency, in capital, in everything towards reopening. The second thing I would say is there is, I don't know, an opportunity to merge. I feel, people with a lot more outlets, some of them might have to close down again, because I don't know if this scenario favors, people with locations, with the presence across locations. So because, if you've been hard hit, then recovery is also gonna take slower and longer. So I hope we could see some consolidation, I don't know, to bring our strengths together, or heads. Then lastly, I would hope to see a lot more investment coming into the industry. I think it's still an exciting space to be in, especially in Kenya, in our cities right now, as the country modernizes. So it's still a great, investment opportunities for new entrants to come and do business in the country as well, and in the counties. There is a lot of demand as, like Northern Kenya opens, there is an opportunity for these chains to, also get in and build better facilities in those places as we open up Marsabit, and other places. So I hope to see a lot more, guys, you're at cafes going to Kisumu, Eldoret, all these places. So then you have same experience we have in Nairobi across, the country.
There's a question for Prince Peterson, and Philip Nyangweso is asking, what health protocols have been put in place in cooking areas, service areas, and accommodation areas? And I think Sally also spoke on this, but maybe Peterson, on the cooking areas, what protocols have been put in place?
Okay, in the kitchen, the only change we have is the wearing of mask and distancing, keeping the distance. The rest used to be in place. Fumigation, sanitization used to be in place. So the only new thing is wearing of mask and staying apart. No
Yes.
jokes, no conduct in the kitchen. The other thing is testing of the staff. They must be tested for COVID-19 and before they resume to work. So we are sure they are negative, even if we are not in contact. Service area.
Yes, Sally. Can we hear from Sally?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Peterson has said in terms of what Philip raised on what protocols have been put in place in terms of the cooking. Like he mentioned, there's the issues for masks. So I've seen in other hotels, for example, if it's a mask, you have to change it every 4 hours. You cannot use it the whole day. Every 3 to 4 hours, you have to change your mask. There's the issue of the aprons. So as soon as the chefs are in the hotel, they use the aprons and they'll also change at some point. There's of course what Peterson mentioned in terms of weekly testing of staff, and you actually have to show that you have the certificate that you've been tested, which again is so costly. Comes back to the costs you had brought up, Topista. There is the issue of cleaning now in the kitchen, where you don't clean like before. You have to take your things, you put it in the first, you soak it first, and then the next would be you now leave those soaking, and then you go, you clean your hands, you do the changing of the masks, and then you sanitize and you change the clothes. And in terms of the food itself, we no longer clean it just the normal cleaning that we used to do. Other foods are actually sanitized, like the fruits, because they can be carriers of the viruses. So there's of course friendly sanitizers for the foods as well. And then there's the issue of service, because of the services you go, if you check into a restaurant, you start with the cleaning outside, and there's the social distancing rules, and then you're taking your temperatures, and then the people who are serving a table, it should be one at a time. You cannot serve actually 2 tables. So one person deals with you, goes and change the mask again, changing the hand gloves. So it's a whole list of things that have been done to make sure that this is safe.
Esperance, please take this up and ask. I saw your hand up. I know you put your question on the chat, but please go ahead and ask the question. Unmute yourself. Esperance, unmute yourself.
Yeah, the government launched the VR, the virtual reality system to explore national parks in Kenya. And they started with Masai Mara, where Eliud Kipchoge actually launched, but was part of the launch. So it was just a question to Muthuri, because you're in the travel agency. What are your thoughts on this virtual reality, especially in providing culinary experiences? And what is the feedback from your customers? Have you tried to do such a thing for the agency? And how are customers giving feedback or responding to it? Because you mentioned that people are craving for a human connection.
I think there are 2 ways of using VR. One has been as a sense of, I think, inspiration / discovery. So I've seen solutions where you can take a VR tour and end up booking, those experiences on the same website, for example, where you integrate the 2. The second thing is, I foresee experiences becoming a lot more hybrid. And this is, we have the migration happening here, and so we can somewhat give you a taste of that virtually to wherever you are in the world. And I think there will still be some appreciation of that, and even an opportunity to monetize and scale that, for future. However, I still feel there is, as tourism reopens, we are starting with proximity becomes key. So it will start, of course, with Kenyans traveling around themselves and within the country, and then regionally, and then maybe intra-Africa, and then we have the long haul travelers. maybe coming from next year or the other year. The interesting thing is we are also heading into elections, which is another thing that really disrupts our tourism. So I would hope to see more people diversify their offerings as businesses, and whether that's, having a mix of, virtual and physical, or whether that's having different strategic business lines that are able to, to cover for each other as we, emerge from this COVID cycle and into the next, and then the seasonality of tourism. So again, I think, as everyone has said, the downtime is a good time to, to realign and rethink and, sort of restart.
Thank you. In terms of looking at, and this I think goes to Prince, issues of outside catering. Are chefs able to borrow from that and maybe come up with new ways? And I'm asking this because maybe borrowing from the celebrities in this country who are able to, hire chefs for their own, to cook for them personally for events. What other ways are chefs, adopting to be able to survive this period?
Okay. Apart from those small indoor or private chefs, dinners and lunches, chefs have also become innovative. They are making their things like cakes and selling in the supermarkets or walking around. They are making samosas and selling to people around. So this is how we are surviving, because the new norm does not.
I think we have an issue. We are losing Peterson. And coming back to you, Muthuri, looking at the trends of COVID-19, which changes do we see remaining even after post-COVID-19? Because we have gone through several changes, which changes are likely to stick in the industry?
I think, most restaurants did not have a connection to their customers. And by connection, I mean KYC. So they know who was walking in, who's been a repeat customer. So I would hope to see a lot more, I think, investment, simply because of contact tracing. I think now people are capturing data points that would show how to better run loyalty programs, how to incentivize buyer behavior, how to get people back and bring them back more often, and also upsell them. So if you have a restaurant, then you have accommodation, you have bars, you have swimming pools, you can upsell them to your different other revenue centers, for example, because you have data that shows their spending. How do you know someone who lives in Nairobi versus someone who passed by en route to the airport going back to, Australia? The second thing is I would hope to see there will be, of course, a steady rise of, dark kitchens. And I would hope to see more, I think, chefs or fantastic, creators, launch customer facing brands, around, whether that's pastries or whether that's something else. But I would hope to see that. I think there is an appreciation of that. However nascent and niche it is, I think the space is there. The last thing is I think a better way of adapting to change. I think COVID has brought a lot of disruption that's, I think, helped people build internal capacity, I think, to handle, crisis and all that. So I hope these protocols will help, the industry become a lot more resilient and prepared for whatever else may come in future. So it's however bad it's been, I think it can only get better from here. So I'm very optimistic of what the future looks like for the industry.
Thank you, Muduri. We also saw another trend in this industry where, and you very well much earlier on mentioned the issue of Kenyans craving, that socializing aspect. And over this period, we have seen certain bars and even restaurants lock their patrons or customers in the bars or restaurants after the curfew hours. What are some of the lessons learned from this period of time, especially on the aspects of socializing, both for the customers and the restaurant and bar owners?
I think COVID might have disrupted our lifestyles, but it never changed, I think, our behaviors. So if people wanted to drink, they would drink at home or now figure out how to get their drink. However, I see, for example, when the curfew was lifted and now bars within hotels would operate, for example. So a lot more people have started traveling so they can drink in the hotels without, having to worry about the curfew and all those things. All-inclusive resorts like the one I'm staying at are, fully functional bars from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So again, I see a lot more of, travel for food kind of, travel to eat local, go for a snorkeling excursion, eat, food prepared by the local fishermen. I think there is a lot of that, in terms of micro experiences that people might want to, go to Western Kenya and have fresh tilapia, all those things. So for me, I see, and people are always, people don't like being restricted. So, if you look at, sometimes rules are meant to be broken, people will still find a way to innovate around some of these things, whether that's, changing the license. If bars are closed, then people open wines and spirits shops because those can be open. And then you have a place at the back where people can sit and eat from and all those things. I don't know. So I am also optimistic that when the president speaks next time, they could ease some of these, because the industry is really, I think, suffering. So I would hope they relax some of these restrictions to allow, hoteliers do bigger meetings, and there will be compliance. There will be, people know they're supposed to wear masks, people know they're supposed to sanitize. Health and safety is a standard now across. It's not just unique to Kenya. So, and I feel there is general awareness, and people need to now get back to business and, and continue. Birthdays are happening, anniversaries, people are getting married. I don't know. There is some semblance of normalcy returning, and we need to be ready for that. And we are heading into the festive season, so it's also a good time to paint a glimpse of how that will look like. Yeah.
Then the measures that you mentioned by government, in your view, are these likely to assist the industry to get back on its feet in the post-COVID era?
Honestly, that's a very tricky question. I think they've done one or a few things. There is always room to do more. However, what I feel is the government should relook more policy interventions. I think if the environment is enabling, then there will be capital to, to sort of reinvest. I feel there is also need for better cooperation. So then the measures or guidelines also have some industry input, because there are things you're telling people to have in place that do not really make commercial sense, or the investments to ensure those are implemented. There are of course issues around like occupancy restrictions, like you're supposed to have, to do 50% occupancy, have a room free for 24 hours and all these other things. I would hope the government to see how they can support the investors, either with, tax rebates, your 2019 or whatever 2020 licenses would apply for next year as well. There is a lot of, you get people from all over county governments, different departments. I would hope to see some leniency, so it does not necessarily have to be a cash or funds set. The other thing I think the tourism industry did with Kenya Bankers Association is restructuring debt that hotels had borrowed from Kenyan banks, and that was a collective approach to say, whether that's a repayment holiday or something, or restructuring that debt, but it was supported by the associations. But I think the government also needs to do a lot more for the destination in terms of marketing, to be able to restore and regain or put it top of mind as people want to now travel. They have Kenya as in their consideration set for coming back or for visiting for the first time. And I feel that's an opportunity. I think the government would, push a lot harder at the international level to, to open both, our priority A source markets and the nascent ones that we've been developing, like India, Australia, and even within Africa, like Nigeria, South Africa, and the rest.
Is there a strong support base for the industry to push for these policies? Because at times for government, you need a support base to lobby for such policies. For you then to even have that participatory place or engagement for positive or for policies that would help the industry?
I think there's been, a joint effort, from different associations. Our tourism industry, I think, requires an equivalent of what KEPSA is, Kenya Private Sector Alliance. So it needs, I think, an umbrella body that brings all associations together to have, to align interests. What I feel that I think the associations in the industry have become more silos. So they've ended up, there is lots of pockets of conversations happening in different places that are not necessarily being able to be channeled towards policy and all those kind of things. So I would hope to have maybe an umbrella body, or maybe a domestic tourism council of Kenya with more of the younger or new normal tour operators like us guys to be able to give some input. The other thing I would see is I don't know, engagement across, because I think the government listens to the big guys, so I would hope to have frameworks where even the small guys in mashinani, and they have something can feed into a national grid and be able to be seen, supported, and replicate their solution. So I don't know, maybe I'm optimistic, but I think I'm a big fan of private sector led initiatives. Not to say the government doesn't play its part, but I think there are people who manage the bureaucracy, and then there are people who just want to get it done.
Thank you very much, Muthuri and Peterson. And I think I see a question from Esperance, and I think I'll take this opportunity to hand over to you, Esperance, so that you can hand over to James.
Thank you, Topista. A question to Mukuri and Peterson, picking from the learning points of the pandemic. I don't know, are there any risk factors that you can recommend to the industry players to take into consideration in case we are hit with another pandemic, which I'm not praying for, but in case such a thing happens? Are there any risk factors that you can recommend as we wrap up? I'll start with Prince Peterson. Prince, are we together?
Yeah, we are together.
Yeah, please, if you can just respond to that as we do our wrap up.
I think the industry has learned to be prepared for any eventualities. You never know what will come up tomorrow. So we need to have a kitty somewhere to support the industry in case of such a pandemic happens again, or something like this pandemic happens again. We need to have a kitty somewhere for support in such situations.
Can you give like an example of what can be included in this kitty?
For example, we should the government should come up with a policy that as long as someone is working, should be deducted certain amount of money, or the company should be paying certain amount of money to the kitty, so that in such eventualities, the amount can be used for cautioning the players or the staffs, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Muthuri, do you have any?
In terms of mitigating the risk, I think maybe Tourism Finance Corporation, can make it easy for SMEs to access credit facilities. I think that would sort of give everyone an equal chance for the new normal. I think the other thing is maybe the Tourism Act can be amended or reviewed to factor in the ramifications of COVID-19, and that also helps the private sector when it comes to their recovery. The other thing that I've mentioned is I think a domestic tourism council would be good. So domestic tourism does not remain an afterthought, but a key or core to building, I think, a more resilient industry where we don't look at Kenyans as as a placeholder when foreigners are not coming into the country. Yeah, and I think we are heavily regulated and a bit underserved. So I would hope to have it the other way, where there is more service, there is more,
Hello, Muthuri. Muthuri, looks like we lost Muthuri. Sally, you had a point.
So I just wanted to add on to what Muthuri had said in terms of what the government should do in order to boost the industry. And there's the issue of KTB. The Kenya Tourism Board should actually play a big role. I remember initially, even the hotels would not sell alcohol, despite the fact that they have residentials. But later, the hotel sectors came together and pushed the agenda through the KTB. And later, they actually approved that they should sell alcohol to the people who are staying in the hotel. The other thing is, in terms of restriction, I think they should be loosened a bit, because operating hours, if you are to close at 7 p.m. and open in the afternoon, that's very little time to actually make some revenues. And the other thing would be finally on the meeting spaces, the restrictions. It's funny that we are doing all the social distancing measures. A room that was hosting 1,000 people is now hosting like 40 people. But then again, you'll see some politicians with their campaigns, campaigning without masks, and they are all over with millions of people. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's it, Esperance.
Thank you so much, Sally, for that. And I think now we need to close this session. I'd like just to say thank you to our panelists, Muthuri Kinyamu from Turn Up Travel Agency, and Prince Peterson, who is the president of the Culinary Society, and Topista Nabsoba, who has been our moderator. Those are very great insights from the discussions that we've had. And also thank you from our attendees who have also been very participative with the questions. We really appreciate it. And it has come out strongly that as industry players, we need to rethink on how we do our businesses. And as Muthuri said and picked up, that we need to actually come up with a domestic tourism council, which is going to drive the agenda for the domestic tourism in Kenya. And Najib Balala said that currently domestic tourism is the safest way to recover the 163 billion industry that we lost in 2019. So thank you so much for everyone who has joined us, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the next session. James, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I think I'll have to be closing now. James?
Maybe you introduce the next session.
Okay.
A very exciting session coming as well.
It's okay. Yeah. So thank you so much again for joining us. And now for the next session, we're going to have a master class on the basics of videography and storytelling. This will be done by one Rajveer Soin, who is a guru in doing videography classes, and also he's a travel vlogger. So he has experience in producing nice videography shots on travel experiences, on food experiences, and he has also worked with brands. So I hope to see you there. Zoom in, come with your phone, come with your camera. Please put a plate of food there, so when he says this is the angle you use, you also do it. Stay tuned, guys. Thank you.